Rock Stories with the Brumster, tales from the fans, rock stories, real rock stories from real fans, from the fans' perspective, behind the scenes, their favorite concert memories, your favorite rock memories, all right here, cataloged for you at the Rock Stories with the Brumster YouTube channel. Check it out today if you'd like to share your favorite concert memories, rock memories, going back in the time machine, if you will, in the theater of the mind as you're listening and you're thinking of some of your experiences. Hey, that's what the show's all about. Get in touch with me at our Gmail, which is Rock Stories with the Brumster, Brumster with 2 M's, Rock Stories with the Brumster at gmail.com. Let me know, hey, I'd like to come on the show and share some of my favorite memories, man. And we'd be glad to have you here. That's what the show's all about. It's all about you, spotlighting you and your favorite rock memories and rock stories. Rock Stories with the Brumster YouTube channel. Brumster here. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you. And let's get right to it. Our guest today is a return guest, Eddie Petrill Ayala. He's with us. And he has been rocking with a group called Fast Times, of course, coming on May 2nd to the Visalia Fox Theater, 6:30. Get your tickets now, foxvisalia.org, and Fast Times being the resident band for the Whiskey A Go-Go. We're so blessed to have him on the show today, again, coming back. And we're excited that you're here. Thank you so much, Eddie, and we appreciate you rocking with the Brumster, bro. Thank you so much for being here.
What's up, Brumster? You having some fun today or what?
I am, man. I am, and I'm super excited. Last show I saw at the Visalia Fox Theater with you, just totally rocking it with your teammates up there, your bandmates. And the show was awesome. I brought my son and my wife with me. We had a great time. And I haven't been back for, I think, 2 years since I came last to Depeche Mode. I believe there was a tribute Depeche Mode band up there that was doing some music as everything opened up. And, of course, we had Joey Alessi on just a few weeks ago, or excuse me, just a few days ago. Time is flying. And he's with Sweet Emotions, the Aerosmith tribute band that is now opening for Fast Times coming Saturday, May 2nd. Again, 6:30, foxvisalia.org. Guys, get your tickets now. It's going to be a freaking blast. I'll be there as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. But wow, like you're always doing something different. You're rocking with Fast Times at Whiskey A Go-Go for the tribute band. For folks who were just kind of, having foggy memories of trying to remember what we talked about last time and what to expect this Saturday at the Visalia Fox Theater for the Fast Time show, it really is an experience, isn't it? It's more than the music, but the experience, the show, the showmanship, just getting the crowd involved. What a great show. Welcome again to the show, Eddie, and Fast Times. Wow. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Fast Times it's a bit of an anomaly in that it's not a tribute band and it's not a cover band. Do we play covers? Yeah. Are we a tribute band? No, because we don't tribute one band. We tribute the era of the 80s, and that's why we say it's Fast Times, the 80s concert experience. And it's a difficult premise sometimes to get across because people aren't used to that. They're used to either a cover band or a tribute band. And we managed to pull both of them together in a cohesive show. It takes you back to like you're in an arena in 1984 or 85 and bring all of that mayhem and magic, in one shot. So it's kind of unique. Everything from Depeche Mode to Metallica. And I think that's the basis for our wide audience, is that nobody goes home wanting. Everybody gets something. You've seen the show, so you obviously know.
And the diversity of what you're playing as well. You update your set list. You still have your favorites, your core favorites, of course, that people have to hear. We've got to hear that. But you come to one of your shows, you're always evolving the show for the crowd. It's not always the exact carbon copy of the of last year's show as an example, right?
Right. Well, that's because of the performance aspect. You know, you mentioned the Whiskey A Go-Go. We were there for 5.5 years. And not to toot our own horn, but I will, because it's significant. You know, we now own the record for the longest residency in the Whiskey's history. We passed the Doors, we passed Van Halen, we passed Frank Zappa, you know, Motley Crue. And some would say, well, you guys are playing covers. And it's like, well, those bands played covers to offset their originals back then too. So it's kind of the same thing. But just to have the staying power is more of an aspect of the music and how it's timeless. I often mention that there's two genres that'll live forever, and that's disco and 80s music, because it makes people dance and it makes people happy. You know, not to take away from like some of the grunge stuff in the 90s or some of the more expressive, like the pseudo fusion stuff of the 70s, like Kansas and whatnot. It just doesn't carry the same type of energy, you know, this positive energy. And it's infectious, and it's really all about the audience. This band is all about the audience. And you don't get the same show every time, you know, whereas you get bands that go up there and play, and they're excellent musicians, but they're not much of a showman. After you see that a few times, you can walk away and say, you've seen it, you know. But with Fast Times, it's like, wow, they didn't do that before. You know, there's always a little something. Even if it's the same songs, the delivery is going to be different.
I think what you said a moment ago, and by the way, Eddie Ayala is on the Rock Stories with the Brumster podcast with us today, and thank you for being here, Eddie. You rock, man. He's part of the amazing Fast Times 80s concert experience happening again at the Visalia Fox Theater May 2nd, 6:30, doors open. Get your tickets now, foxvisalia.org. It's going to be a great show this weekend coming up. What you just said is what it's all about. Happiness. You're giving something to the fans, that the friends, the guests that come to your show have an experience
right.
where they smile, and you're looking out as a performer, not just trying to hit the notes and hit the song and hit the dance move and all of that and the look, and you do all of that wonderfully. The entire band does. But I know you're a performer. You're looking out there and you're seeing the reactions on the faces of the crowd, huh?
Right. And I often get comments like, wow, it must be so cool. You feel like a total rock star up there, man. It must feel great. And it's like, it's not really how we interpret it. You know, we look out at the audience, and that's what I think something that makes us a little different than a lot of bands in the tribute genre or in cover bands is we are all about the audience. My biggest thrill is seeing people dancing and having fun, and like you said, the smiles. You know, my rock star chances were over 30 years ago. You know, I tried to make it back in the 80s, you know, on the Sunset Strip. So I guess in a way, come with a legit pedigree, and that's why it looks real, because I was there. And even though, you know, I didn't become famous and tour arenas, or right now all that stuff pays off in what I'm doing now. But it's very cool to play for people, and I tell them we have the longest running high school reunion, you know, in the world right now, because everyone's like, wow, this takes me back to back in the day. And of course they look at, you know, the way that I perform or whatnot, and they'll mention, oh, you know, you don't understand it, but back, you know, I'm older, it's back in my day, but thank you for playing our music. And then, you know, I find out that I'm actually sometimes older than they are. I just look younger on stage, you know. We're all in the same boat. Everybody's got a paddle, you know. So it's very inclusive.
So Sunset Strip, you're up and coming artist trying to make it in the business back in the 80s.
Yes.
Sunset Strip, for our listeners, paint a picture. What does that world look like? Well,
it was a lot different than it is now, because people were hungry to make it. I mean, I started playing the Sunset Strip in 82, playing with bands like LA Guns at the Troubadour. Back then, the things were sectioned. You know, there was Whiskey, Roxy bands, and there was Troubadour Gazzarri's bands. And we started out being the Troubadour / Gazzarri's type band. The band was called Manic Panic. Little nod to our bass player from back then. He's Freddie Herrera. He's been the bass player and Everclear for the last 15 or so years. So, we've still got our claws into the music scene all this time later. But it was very competitive. We were there before it became pay to play. So you would get booked because you generated interest. But invariably, we were based 50 miles outside of LA. It was very difficult to keep that going, to convince, people to keep coming. And you'd get locals, but it was a tough game back then. And invariably, you need everybody in the band to be on the same page. And for my band, that didn't really happen. There was two of us that were very focused, Freddie and I, and the other two were more about the party aspect of being in a band. And it's a lot more work than that. So unfortunately, it didn't happen. But, having fun with it now.
What does pay to play look like, knowing now, we're in a completely different world where it's about views on someone's TikTok or something, but what does pay to play look like? How did that come into the mix and change things up? It sounds like it was more meritocracy prior to that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what changed was similar to like Manic Panic. We had good songs and we had a good band, but we couldn't keep a distant crowd coming to the venues. So that gave birth to the promoters who thought, you know what, I'll buy the room for the night. And then I'll just put out ads and gather up all these bands that are so hungry to play and say, hey, are you guys good? Yeah, we're good. Can you get a lot of people? Oh, yeah, we'll get a lot of people. Well, cool. Here's 60 tickets. Give us $10 a ticket. You can sell them for 15 or 20, whatever you like. And that's how it started. And invariably the band would show up and play, and they got like 6 people in the audience that they maybe gave tickets away, and they had to eat $600. And to tell you the truth, that premise is going on still today.
Really?
Yeah. But it's now just part of the business. But the problem back then is it started to dilute the talent, because now they were getting people into the clubs as much as they could, not on merit. So you would go to see a headliner, and there would be maybe 3 or 4 bands ahead of them. And it's like, wow, this is maybe not my cup of tea. And it started to turn some people off. Because if you're paying to play, you're not necessarily getting the gig on your merit. You're getting it on your dollar. So sometimes things don't quite add up. I don't want to be disparaging about anybody's talent, but there was a lot of bands that played that just didn't have it locked in. And it's difficult to watch.
I bet you painful sometimes, like fingernails on a chalkboard. At some point in time, you're looking at this band, you're like, God, 5 years ago, they wouldn't even let this band through the door. I'm sure that happened.
Yeah. Well, our residency at the Whiskey, we actually tried to reverse that a bit, because we did Mondays, which was a typical industry night for Hollywood, following on the heels of Metal Shop, which ended up becoming Steel Panther. And so Monday was a standard. And when we first had the premise of, okay, we'll start a residency, the idea was, okay, well, we'll charge all these bands ahead of you. And I brought it to the attention of the band, and the management was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, because we're asking bands to come out on a Monday. So I think it's best that we give them their exposure and try to help them build, a following. And it didn't always work out. Sometimes bands would show up with like 15 people, where they're promising 60 upon booking. But that's just the business part. That's how it works. But at least bands got to play, excuse me, at the world famous Whiskey without having to pay money. So I like to think that Fast Times made a lot of dreams come true for a lot of bands. To be able to play at the Whiskey a Go-Go. It is iconic. There's no doubt.
As an artist, when you look back, Eddie Ayala with us today from Fast Times, the 80s concert experience, coming again to the Visalia Fox Theater May 2nd, 6:30. The doors open. Get your tickets now, foxvisalia.org. The Brumster will be there, so please join us. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is.
Who do you remember playing? I don't want to say against because you said competitive, so I guess I'll use that word. It may not be the best descriptor to say against, but who were you really billed up against and having to play against? You mentioned LA Guns at the Troubadour, that's the type of band you sort of were. Manic Panic, by the way, very cool name. Did you come up with that name?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I love it.
Before I found out that it was a hair color product in England. Go figure, right?
That's cool.
But as far as other bands on the scene, there was one called VVSI, which I really liked. They were a Troubadour band. Brooklyn Brats we used to play with, another Troubadour band. A cool little, you like stories? This is obviously a podcast about fans, and people need to realize that I'd say all musicians are fans. We're all fans of music. So we're playing at the Troubadour with the Brooklyn Brats, and somebody affiliated with our band, he was like our manager. He ends up being somebody's best friend, but he's the manager. He's like, hey, David Lee Roth's in the audience. And I didn't see him during our whole set. And I'm like, oh, come on, you're lying.
Who'd you say? Forgive me, I didn't hear you.
David Lee Roth. My friend was the manager of the band, but he said David Lee Roth caught our show at the Troubadour.
Okay.
And I didn't believe him, so he took me outside, and sure enough, in the alley was Dave's Mercedes-Benz with the skull and crossbones on the hood. And once we did a song. I used to pick odd covers. Most people don't know that I'm actually really a career guitar player, but I play bass in Fast Times. So in Manic Panic, I was the songwriter, guitar player. And we would throw in covers, kind of like Van Halen did with You Really Got Me. We had a cover of Last Train to Clarksville by the Monkees. And for the guitar players out there, if you think about that riff, it is totally like a Van Halen riff, just waiting to happen. So we played Last Train to Clarksville. We come back from the alley, and I see Dave's at the front bar with his bodyguards, and I sat like 2 stools away from him just to listen to him talking about his Amazon jungle tours and all this stuff. And it was pretty interesting. And he takes a drink and he looks down and he sees me and he goes, hey, the Monkees, that was badass. And I was like, cool, man. David Lee Roth noticed. So there's a cool rock story that you don't get often here.
Yeah, DLR was a fan of the Monkees, apparently, right?
Yeah, and apparently dug the way Manic Panic pulled it off, so I'll take that.
That's awesome, dude.
He said it was badass. But it was all about original music back then. I didn't get into covers until the 2000s. And I didn't get into tributes until 2015, maybe.
Oh, that's a really great point. You mentioned a moment ago that you wrote music. You play bass right now in Fast Times, but you actually are a guitarist of many colors, if you will. And you did a lot of writing for Manic Panic, and talk a little bit about that. The process. Everyone talks about the muse, talks about kind of how is it that you can go in there into a room and then walk out, an hour or two later and you got a song. It doesn't always work that way, but what does that process look like for you?
Well, for a guitar player, it typically just starts with noodling around in your bedroom back then. Now I have a studio, but back then it was a bedroom, and you come up with a riff and it's like, wow, that's really cool. So you bust out the old cassette recorder and record it if you're smart. Because more than often than not, I would even say it happened to me. There's probably a lot of amazing riffs in the ether that I forgot, that I didn't record so I could remember them, and that's unfortunate. But it starts with a riff, and then you'll come up with a progression after that. You'll run it by the rest of your bandmates and start putting it together. You kind of will hear a rhythm, how you envision the drums, but you have the drummer do his thing, the bass player do his thing. I've always been a advocate of singers singing their own lyrics, but our singer was, like I said, not as committed. So often I would write like the first verse and the first chorus and then claim, I can't come up with anything. And then he would be able to mirror what I've done and finish the song. So then he would have some ownership, and it was a better vibe that way. But anyone that writes songs, once you write the verse and the chorus, you basically got the song written, because you're just going to repeat that. The hardest thing is coming up with those melodies. And there's some that are awesome right out of the gate, and there's some that you keep working on, and it takes a lot of effort, and then they're good. And there's some awesome ones that you keep working on, and you ruin them because they were awesome when they were out of the gate. So it can go both ways.
So collaboration wise, it worked out better to keep them involved. In all reality, you kind of already walked the dog all the way up to the end of the trail, and you probably could have done the rest yourself, but you just realized as the leader of the band and just trying to make everything more cohesive, let's give these guys some ownership here so they feel like they're a part of the process, right?
Right. But it's not diminishing what they bring, because a lot of times they'll bring something I never thought of. And that's what collaboration is all about.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with I don't know, a lot of the guys I played with throughout my career, just not quite as motivated. You hear stories about Motley. They're all living in a one-bedroom apartment with cockroaches and stuff because they want it so bad. Okay, that wasn't Manic Panic. That wasn't the way that we started. And those are the bands that go on to be successful because they're willing to sacrifice things. And in an odd way, Fast Times is the same way. We put in whatever it takes to make it happen. There's nobody in the band that's got a free ride. Everybody's focused on making it the best product. Whereas there's a lot of tribute bands, even that I played with coming up, that they're not dedicated to making it the best way that it can be. And let's face it, with tribute bands, you have to be fortunate as well. If you're going to do a Motley band, you don't want to have a bass player that's 5'5" and a guitar player that's 6'3", because it doesn't look like Motley Crue, no matter what you do. So there's a little bit of luck involved, So it's dedication that will move things forward.
Speaking of dedication, Eddie Ayala with us from Fast Times, the 80s concert experience, and professional musician as well. And backstage, you're also the backstage help. You're speaking of dedication. You're working on filling up fog machines with fog juice when I called, right?
Yes. The production that we do doesn't do it by itself. We really have to give the nod to Johnny Ventura, the singer, Fast Times, for taking the time to create the video boards that go along with all the music. And this has been his band for probably 20 years plus. It's his baby. And I feel very, very fortunate to be a part of it. And I feel very obligated to help him see it through to its total capacity. I mean, realistically, how much more time do we have left to do this? I mean, for the last 10 years, people have been saying, the 80s crowd is going to age out. And if anything, I've noticed younger people coming. So as long as there's people that want to hear it, we're good to go. So we're going to keep putting the effort in.
Oh, dude.
But it takes work.
Hey,
it takes work.
It takes work. And what you just said, the younger crowd, a lot of these bands and artists, they sold their catalogs, and now you're hearing all this music show up in commercials everywhere. So what was it? A State Farm commercial, Bon Jovi's rocking the Living on a Prayer jam. And in other words, it's now a part of Americana, not just a subset or a niche of music anymore. It's now a part of our culture, our country at large. We're all interwoven regardless of our age or our background, right?
Exactly. And that's why I think tribute bands have become a legit profession, because we're taking something from 1985 and presenting it like 1985. My first tribute band was a Rat tribute band. I covered Warren DeMartini's part on lead guitar in a Rat tribute band. It was originally called Body Talk, and it turned into a band called Back for More. But when you looked at us on stage, it looked like Rat. And we actually had Bobby Blotzer sit in and play with us, the drummer from Rat. And he commented to me, he's like, dude, so scary looking at it, you guys. Like, it looks like my band in 1985, but it's like 40 years later, what the hell's going on here? He goes, it's a trip, dude. And I thought that was a great compliment, that we bring the vibe towards that, man, is this Ratt? It looks like Ratt. It sounds like Ratt. And to get that confirmation from Ratt's drummer as he's playing with us, that's pretty cool, you know. And speaking of Blotzer, we've talked. We haven't gotten it done, but I've demoed 2 songs that he said he would play on and we collaborate on. Still waiting on that, Bobby, if you get to hear this. But, you know, like he says, dude, I've been there and done that. I don't want to start over. And it's like, it's not starting over. It's just for fun. And actually, I think this week I'm going to do a video of the pre-production of one of the songs that I'm collaborating on for him on my YouTube channel. So it'll be interesting. So I'm still writing original music. So
I checked out your YouTube channel, and you have a lot of cool backstage stuff that you do. Did some cool Christmas stuff recently as well.
The Christmas stuff is very interesting. That's
really
with the actor Patrick Warburton. Do you know who he is?
No.
He's the voice of Joe in The Family Guy, or he was Elaine's boyfriend in Seinfeld.
Ah, yes,
he was
yes.
the Tick. You know, he does a lot of voiceovers. You know, he was Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove, that Disney cartoon.
He'll always be Elaine's boyfriend, covered in the Devils, the New York or New Jersey Devil. The Devil! Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, he's so funny.
Yeah, he actually gave me a bobblehead of him in the New Jersey's Devils outfit. He's got his own bobblehead. But I met him at a Fast Times show, actually my first New Year's show with Fast Times back in 2017 going to 18. And back then we did characters where I was Nikki Sixx, the guitar player was Slash, and the drummer was Devo. And we've since gotten away from that because other bands were copying that format exactly back east and up north. So we kind of went more of a Steel Panther route with doing an 80s thing. But so I'm in the band like a month, and we finished, you know, the New Year's Eve show. We're backstage, and Johnny and Diego, at the time the guitar player, was sitting across from me facing the door to the green room, and I had my back to it, and I hear a voice, "Hey, somebody would like to meet you. Is that okay?" And I'm the new guy, so I'm thinking they're talking to Johnny, and Johnny and Diego are both looking at me, and I'm like, I turn around and she's looking at me, and I'm like, okay, sure. So I go out there thinking it's going to be, you know, a woman who loved the stuff in the 80s and was a Nikki Sixx fan or whatnot. And around the curtain comes Patrick Warburton. He comes up to me and does this. A lot of actors do this. They put their hands together like they're praying, and they bow in front of you. And he goes, "Your Nikki Sixx was most awesome." And that started a friendship that we've had since 2018. And we started collaborating on music maybe 3 years ago when we did The Grinch. Because I told him, "Hey, with your voice," you know, because he's wanting to sing, and he had a band, but it just, like, again, people that weren't committed. And plus, he's got a real tight schedule with acting and everything still, and now he's doing stand-up. I'm like, well, let's do recordings. I go, let's do a Christmas song. And we did The Grinch. That was the first one 2 years ago, and then this year we released Run, Run, Rudolph. So it's all a lot of fun. A little heads up, the next one is probably going to be Blue Christmas, the Elvis version, but a little bit more up-tempo. But it's all for fun, not for any kind of profit.
You really love what you do, and that shines through in the audience. We feel it.
Well, good. That's the whole point of the Fast Times concert experience, is to take people back. We have one guy that likes to introduce us in Hollywood, and he's always saying that we are the poster child for that movie Hot Tub Time Machine. So almost got his name's Julian. They call him Mr. 80s. He's a great guy. Julian Douglas. A little shout out for Julian Douglas. But yeah, Hot Tub Time Machine, we will take you back, you know. I guess in a different universe, that would have been a good name for the band as well.
Right? But what's funny is Get Out of My Head, because literally right now I write little notes, like when I'm, you know, doing this with you and with other guests, and that way I can kind of like, I don't want to forget to ask this question. I don't want it just to fly away. And so I put on here my next little comment I was going to make is the show and what you do is basically like putting people into a time machine.
That's
And
it.
that, what a coincidence that you just said that. I just wrote that down before you said it. What a trip. That's so
Well,
true though, isn't it?
right, right. That's why it's not really amazing that you came up with it, because it's the premise for what we do. And it becomes obvious. What's interesting is how hard it is to convey that to, say, like somebody on the other side of the country, because unless you can explain it, and I wish we had some better PR people that could explain things. You know, what is Fast Times? Well, you know, they dress up like a, you know, 80s. Oh, so they're a tribute band. Well, no. They do a wide variety of 80s songs. Oh, okay, so they're a cover band. We don't really want either of those. And it's like, no, you don't understand. It's like all of the 80s bands, from new wave to metal, under one roof, delivered like you're actually in the arena. And if they use those words, I think we'd be doing much better. You know, I've always made the comparison of putting a map on the wall and get a handful of darts and throw a dart at the map and find the next nearest Indian casino or any casino and go call them up, send them the promo package. Here's a band that appeals to your entire demographic. Whereas if you were to book a Poison band, and we'll get back to that later, that crowd better like Poison all night, you know. But with Fast Times, the metal guy's not going to walk away because we're playing Poison. The pitch mode person isn't going to walk away because we're playing Poison. We're playing everything, you know. So that's why I think there's some success to what we do with Fast Times.
Rather than have a shrinking demographic, you have an expanding demographic that's still expanding with the newer, younger generation being exposed to it as well. It's fluid. It's not stuck, right?
And the patience is paying off. This year we are heading to Kentucky and Ohio and Philadelphia, Reno this month, Visalia, Oroville, which is above Sacramento. So we're starting to spread out a bit. I really think that once we start playing out in, you know, mid-America or on the East Coast, Fast Times is one of those bands that once you see it, you get it. Because we've sent video to people and they're like, oh, okay. And then they see the show and they're like, I had no idea. It's like, we sent you pictures and a video and a song list, and they're like, yeah, but the show's different in person. And it's true. There's an intangible there. And a lot of them say it's the way we connect with the audience. Because it's the audience's show, you know. I've come up with a thing lately where a lot of bands are like fish in a fish tank. You watch them, and sometimes you're even compelled to tap on the glass to get their attention, but the band is almost like behind glass, and they just look at the floor or bob and weave a little bit, but they don't connect with the audience. We do. It's not just you watch us, because we're watching you, and we're bringing you into the show one way or the other, you know. It's all in fun.
Well, Kiss is awesome as an example, a perfect example of an experience versus just the music. Their music is amazing. You know, you listen to it, you rock out to it, you feel it. Those who love Kiss. But you take anybody to go see a live Kiss show and they go, oh, I get it now, right?
Yes. Right. It's so much more in person. And I think that's true of practically everything, you know. I remember we played for NASCAR out here at the California Speedway. I had never been to a NASCAR race, but I'd seen it on TV. Man, those things are fast. Those are cool. Well, they gave us seats right on the rail at the start-finish line after our show. And seeing a car 6 inches away from the wall going 200 miles an hour, you know, 3 feet away from you, that's a different story. So I think that's a decent analogy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely not a boring, round and round the track. Yeah,
exactly.
Anyone who had that opinion going in after being right there where you were seated and experiencing it, a whole nother animal, right?
Exactly. You know, same thing with drag racing. My son's a bottom end mechanic for the Jim Dunn Top Fuel Funny Car team. And we'll go out to Pomona and watch them run. And it's like, you feel that through your bones. They're so loud and so powerful. And you don't get that on TV, you know? Now, Fast Times, we're kind of cognizant of not trying to be too loud. We're very energetic. But, you know, we try to keep everything energetic yet comfortable. So I don't want anyone to mistake like, oh, I don't want to go see Fast Times. They're going to blow my eardrums out. No, that's not the case. We're kind of professional in that way to where we understand how loud certain things need to be in a venue. And we try to convey that, to the sound guys. And invariably, they're the ones that are in control. But if we start getting complaints, we'll ask, hey, come on, man, you got to turn it down a little bit. Make it comfortable. But it still has to have that rock power, So it's a little tightrope you walk. So what else you got for me?
Fast Times 80s concert experience, and it really is an experience, guys. All of it wrapped up into one. You're going to feel it when you get in there. Just the atmosphere is alive. So 6:30, get through the doors, get your seats, get a couple drinks, get yourself settled in. 7:15, I think the show starts May 2nd at the Visalia Fox Theater, foxvisalia.org. Do you have a favorite venue that you've made? It could even have been a long time ago. It could be now. Just what's your favorite venue that you've ever got to play in that you've really just like, wow, I can't believe I'm here?
That obviously the Whiskey. Because like I said, things were separated back in the day. I didn't play the Whiskey until I was in a band in 1988 called Catella. And that was my last hurrah with trying to make it in music back in the day. We had a spec deal with a producer that had worked with David Lee Roth on Skyscraper and Cheap Trick on Lamp of Luxury and Blue Murder. And he saw Catella and was like, hey, I want to do something with you guys. But again, we ran into issues where not everybody was all in. And then he wanted to know, well, who wrote the songs? And it was kind of half and half between the singer and I. And I played in the songs. He goes, well, let's just run with yours then. And I just could not feel the band to make that happen. But to be able to play the Whiskey in 88 was amazing. But to come back and live there, practically with Fast Times, I would tell people, it's not lost on me. I would drive up every Monday to load in at the Whiskey and look up at the marquee and see Fast Times up there and see the Whiskey logo. And I was grateful. It was never lost on me how fortunate I was to be in that position. So that is iconic. The Fox Theater in Visalia, not pandering, but it is an amazing venue. And I look forward to playing that every year. The Agora Canyon Club is another one. They get a lot of national acts through there. And we play there maybe 3 or 4 times a year. We just did New Year's Eve there. And that was awesome, selling that out. But I would say the Whiskey.
That's so cool, man. The history is amazing. And somebody mentioned, I think it was Jason on the last episode, mentioned that still to this day, you guys have some cool folks coming in, Quentin Tarantino, like lots of people come in there. And that are stars, that folks.
Yeah, like we played with Nuno Betancourt.
Yeah.
How cool is that? From Extreme. But you know what? He didn't play guitar. He played drums for us on Rebel Yell. How unexpected is that? And it was awesome. We've had Leif Garrett. We've had Brendan Fraser there, and we brought his son up on stage who plays guitar, and he played with us. Tiffany, if you remember Tiffany, that I think We're Alone Now.
Yeah.
She was up there with us. I can't even think of all the ones, but yeah, throughout that 5-year span, it's been a lot of fun. Patrick Warburton's come out and he sang Melt With You a few times with us at the Whiskey and at Agura. A lot of fun stuff. So DJ Ashpa got up and played with us from 6 a.m. Got taxing to try to remember everybody.
No.
We used to have Kate Beckinsale come out.
Oh, yeah?
Kate Beckinsale. Yeah, she used to come out with her girlfriends, and she called us her therapy because the 80s music. It made her smile, and she actually came out for a streak of like maybe 4 or 5 times, and we actually sectioned off the top section so people wouldn't bug her. I'm a skateboarder from back in the 80s, so from the Tony Hawk era, so I have a lot of friends from then, and I had a Christian Hosoi come out. He's like a legend for all you skateboarders out there, and he's like, oh my God, this is perfect. This whole thing is great. And he'll show up at the Vans. We play Vans Corporate once a year. for the Petros and Money show. So we're still connected with the whole skateboarding thing, which follows into the Fast Times deal. But to have Christian come out with Jeff Ho and his pops, that was really cool. You know, his first question, hey, you guys playing Madonna? Because he loves Madonna. It's like, no, we're a little short on the Madonna tunes right now.
Yeah. Sorry, we don't have Whitney Houston as a part of the program, right?
Yeah, and Steve Stedham, he was a Bones Brigade skateboarder from back in the 80s, another legend, and he has a band up in Vegas, and I brought them down, and they opened for us at the Whiskey, and actually came and played my birthday party here one year, which brings us around to Sweet Emotions. They played my birthday party last year.
Is that how you met them?
Oh, no. Now we're going to go down that road. Okay, so I'll give you a quick little tour of how I got here. I started doing the tribute scene, answering an ad for a Rat tribute band. That was only after I lost a gig for another band. So I'm going through ads that I think it was Craigslist, and it was an ad for an 80s cover band. And I had one through the mid-2000s and tried it again around 2013, and we went through 9 bass players who all decided they just were going to fake it and try to not learn the songs and still get by. So eventually stopped doing that. And being a musician, sat idle for a few months, and it's like, I want to play. I'm going to join somebody else's band instead of running mine. So I answered the ad, and I talked to the singer, and he goes, well, the ad's a little misleading. It's actually a Poison tribute. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm 6'1" and dark complected. I don't think I would make a very good CC DeVille. I would look like a nuclear Oompa Loompa with a Philistero wig on. You know, it's not going to work out. He's like, well, come out anyway. So I grabbed a BC Rich guitar because I thought that was Poison-like, and learned the songs they wanted me to learn, and got there and played. And the bass player said, hey, do you think you can get more of a CC DeVille tone? And I was there with my Rat Van Halen tone, a big sound. And I'm like, oh, my God, why would I want to do that? And you could see them looking around the room like, okay, this guy doesn't get what a tribute band's about. So I basically got dismissed from that. But I stayed in contact with the singer, and I liked the guys. It was all cool, but it's just, you know, I wasn't the good fit. So I ended up getting into a Rat tribute, and we had a Dokken band opening for us a couple times. And the second time they were going to cancel. I met with the guitar player. He used to work at a music store called Sam Ash in Huntington Beach, and I went in there. I'm like, hey, you looking forward to the gig this weekend? And he's like, yeah, we're probably going to have to cancel. We lost our bass player. So I told him, well, dude, I'll learn your songs. So I learned them in 4 days, and I got a whole Jeff Pilson thing together, looked like Jeff Pilson, then went backstage and changed and came out as Warren DeMartini and played the Rat thing. The cool part about that show was there was a guy in the audience that thought I was 2 different people, and he talked to me after the Rat show saying, that was so cool. A bass player from the Dokken tribute set your stuff up for you. I'm like, dude, that was me. He didn't get it, that I was dressed as Jeff Pilson setting up my own stuff. For
like Superman tribute. And Ken Clark, man.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really cool. And through that Dokken band, I got to meet a childhood friend. He was the guy that built the original Mr. Scary guitar for George Lynch, the one that looks like a skeleton. And it's on the It's Not Love video. And he came out to see the Dokken band because he was friends with the guitar player. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, nope, this guy seems familiar. But he came up to about my shoulder, and I didn't think much about it. And then later I saw a post on Facebook from someone named Clifford Garcia talking about my Rat tribute because one of his friends was helping me. And I'm like, Clifford Garcia, you don't hear that very often. So I texted him. I'm like, is this Cliff from Anaheim? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, hey, isn't that cool that John made those guitars for George? I'm like, that's who it was. He came to see the Dokken band. That was like the king of my block when I was a little kid. They call him J-Frog, but his name is John Garcia. He recently passed away.
What a blast from the past, man.
But what total serendipity, here he was the guy I looked up to. And as I now, he comes up to my shoulder, you know what I mean? And he's built that guitar for George, and now we're reconnecting again, 30 plus years later. I thought that was amazing. So then that transferred into us, the rap band, playing with a popular Van Halen tribute out here called Van Halen. And their singer came up to me and said, I heard a rumor that you actually played bass too. I'm like, yeah, I did it for a Dokken band. And he goes, do you think you could put together a Nikki Sixx? I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, he goes, we need a sub for a casino gig. I'm like, okay, when is it? And he goes, this Saturday. I'm like, okay, how long? He's like, 2 hours. So I had to learn 2 hours of Motley in less than 6 days and put together a Nikki Sixx look. And then this Poison band, who dismissed me on guitar, said, wait, could you do Bobby Doll? I'm like, yeah, I guess I could do Bobby Doll. So I got a green Warlock and got the right wig, and now I'm playing with the guys who dismissed me on guitar, and now I'm subbing with them on bass as Bobby Doll. And then that ended up being, and you're going to love this part, the singer and now the current guitar player in the Poison band are the singer and the bass player in Sweet Emotions. So how do you like that little incestuous tight circle there?
Right.
So Troy is the singer for Sweet Emotions. Troy Van Ruy, and Joe Alfaro is the bassist. And Joe does CC DeVille and Pick Your Poison, which we haven't booked in like 2 years. But it's a really good Poison band. There's a video of us playing House of Blues with that Poison band on my YouTube channel as well. And there's some Rat stuff on there too. There's lots of fun stuff. But it's crazy how everything feeds into it. So now go to Fast Times. Their bass player and drummer went into the yacht rock scene. They were in a band called Yachtly Crew. That's their main thing now. So they were doing, like I said, we did characters. So they needed to replace their Nikki Sixx. So since I was doing Nikki Sixx and Motley Crue, 'D, there's some of that on my YouTube channel as well. It came around to me like, hey, you want to audition? And I did, and I've been there ever since. So weird how things work out. So now I play bass for a living, even though I'm a guitar player. But I enjoy it.
Well, and you enjoy putting on the 80s concert experience that provides fans of all ages, all backgrounds, all demographics,
Right.
the ability to escape the stress of this world. And isn't that great? It's like you give people a drug, something that makes them feel good on the inside, forget about their problems for a little bit. What an awesome thing, right? How rewarding that is as an artist, as a performer, right?
Right. We fully understand that we're somewhat riding on other people's coattails, but we're not doing it so much for ourselves as for the scene, keeping the scene alive. And it's like, yes, we get paid for what we do, but that's just like an actor. If you go watch, an old movie like The Ten Commandments, Charlton Heston got paid to be Moses, Now, I use that as another analogy for bands that say, well, we don't need to dress up and put on a clown show and put on wigs like you guys. And it's like, well, there's a reason we play the bigger venues. It's because it's a show. And you could look at someone like Charlton Heston. He was a major actor, amazing actor. And he could have done the Ten Commandments and say, yeah, I just want to wear blue jeans and a T-shirt, guys. I don't want to put on the robe. And it's like, no, sorry, Chuck. I think the robe plays well. Put the robe on and the beard. You know what I mean? You're playing a part, and it makes people happy. If you get too stuck on integrity, like, well, I don't need to pretend that I'm somebody that I'm not. And it's like, well, we're not. We just call this acting put to music, right? We're actors, but we're musicians. And that's all it is. So it's all in good fun.
Yeah. And what you guys are doing, the show, the experience, let's call it, like I mentioned, as the fans in the crowd, we get to feel feelings that are not tied into the stress of today. We get to go,
exactly.
Oh man, this is how it was. And oh wow, this is so cool. I'm not thinking about my bills. I'm not thinking about, politics or the news or some war. And
exactly,
I'm able to put it all down and just have frickin' fun. Right.
Right. I have a fan story for you. I'm still a fan, but back when I was starting out, there was some cool things that happened with Manic Panic. I had a friend that I worked with at a wood shop. He worked there with Freddie Herrera, the bass player in Manic Panic, and myself. And he built guitars and mandolins at home. And he ended up getting hired by Gibson. So now he's at Gibson for a few years, and I get a call from him one year in January saying, hey, we got a new Strat that Gibson's putting out, like a super Strat. And the guy they had pegged for an 80s, guitar player to demo it backed out. Would you be interested in doing it? And I'm like, sure. So I went to the NAMM show, which is the National Association of Music Merchants. And I played for Gibson throughout that show with that guitar and demoed it. And of course, I'm basically a nobody because the NAMM show's got all these big band name, big guys, the names. And for instance, like ESP was next door to us, and George Lynch would go and do his thing and pull my crowd away. You know what I mean? But you can see these people watching me play like, who the hell is this guy? And as a guitar player, you have these ebbs and flows where it's like, hey, I'm playing really good, or God, I'm struggling. Well, that was a really good weekend, and I was using something called an EBO on top of playing a new guitar, and it was a magnetic thing that creates more like a slide type of, it's a magnetic resonant thing for the strings, gives you infinite sustain. So I was doing a lot of cool stuff, and all I was really doing was playing my originals, without vocals, and just noodling around demonstrating the guitar. And afterwards, somebody comes up to me and says, what is that stuff that you've been playing? And I'm like, well, it's, my original stuff. Oh, really? What band you with? And I told him, I go, don't worry, I'm a nobody. And he's like, but that stuff's good. He goes, one of my good friends is Don Dokken, and he likes working with, new bands. He goes, would that interest you? I'm like, well, yeah, sure. He goes, well, here's his number. He goes, I kind of scout for bands for him. And I can't remember that gentleman's name, but I got the card. And then finished that weekend. Monday, I go to work, come home from work, and I'm like, okay, I bet this guy's full of crap, but I'll call the number. And I call the number, and it's a answering machine. And it says, hello, this is Don Dokken. And I hung up right away. I'm like, oh, my God, it's for real. But it was so I called it back, and I left my info. And it took like 3 days. And I come home from work. And remember, this is back in the days when the phone was on the wall, okay, in the house. That was where your phone was, not in your pocket. And my roommate picks it up. He's like, hello. And I hear him go, I'm watching TV on the couch. And he goes, yeah? Okay. Hey, Ed. One of your dickhead friends says he's Don Dokken. And I get the phone, and he goes, well, I've been called a dickhead many times, but this actually is Don Dokken. I'm like, dude, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And he had talked to his friend that seen me and got my message, and he invited me down. And he goes, you might not want to come down, though, because I told him I had a demo that we were partially through. And he goes, well, the problem is this is when they're doing Under Lock and Key. They were just finishing it up. And he says, my time is limited, and if the stuff's not good, I'm going to tell you. He goes, a lot of people don't like that, but the truth is you can't polish a turd. And he goes, and I'll have to tell you, yeah, this isn't up to what the standards that I want. I'm like, no, I'm cool. Let's do it. Let's do it. I go, it was good enough for your friend to realize it even without vocals. So that's a head start. And he's like, yeah. So I called Freddie, the bass player who's in Everclear right now. Told him, hey, I'm coming to get you. We're going to go down to see Don Dokken at the studio in Hermosa Beach. And that's where Great White and all those guys did all their recordings at. I think it was called Prime Track. Anyway, I pull up to Freddie's house, and he's just sitting there watching MTV in gym shorts. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, what, were you serious? I'm like, yeah, I get dressed. And we go down there, and it's in a lot of recording studios are in business parks. And we pull into this business park, and there's no nomenclature, no signage on doors or anything, but it's like, God, it should be right here. And Freddie's like, see, dude, I told you, you got your chain pulled, because earlier on, like a few years earlier, we had somebody saying he was a rep for Nikki Sixx following us around, and that Nikki wanted to work with Manic Panic. And this guy put this ruse on for a year plus. And we never bit. We just said, yeah, okay, when it happens. Yeah. We just kept him on the leash. So Freddie's like, see, dude, you got led around by the nose again. And as we're sitting there, a black Corvette rolls up, and out jumped the guitar player and the bass player from Great White. And they look at us, and then they walk through this door, and I'm like, I think that's the door. And Freddie was a big Great White fan. And back then, you could just see his jaw open. So we get out, and as I'm reaching for the door opens, and it's Don Dock, and he goes, hey, you must be Eddie, right? And I look at Freddie, and his mouth's just hanging open. It's like, see, dude, miracles can happen. So played our stuff for Don. He goes, you know what? I like it. Set it up with my guy, and we'll see what we can do. And then he played us all under lock and key, before it was released, making a point of saying, hey, some of these heavier ones I wrote. It's not all about George. I wrote some of these heavy ones. I'm not, people think he does all the heavy stuff. And it's like, okay, calm down. We dig it. And as it turns out, there's a tape speed thing called IPS, which is inches per second. And ours was run at the slowest, I think at 15, and the pro studios run at 30. And our engineer thought he was saving us money on tape, but the pro machines only run at 30, which spreads the information along the tape at a much wider range and it's better quality. So Don ended up not being able to help us because we couldn't put our 16 track on his 16 track. So that was a near miss. But,
so that was all story. Compatibility from a technological standpoint, but as far as your playing, we had it. Yeah. We had it locked in. He was going to do it. And it was just going to be a demo, not a record deal, but who knows what it would have moved on to.
Wow. Then one more story for you is, it's brought about by tragedy. I lost my first wife to cancer in 2010.
Sorry, man.
And that led to me meeting another woman later, Shelley, my wife now. And she actually met me at us playing a cancer benefit. After I'd thrown music away, when my wife passed away, I stopped doing music completely and actually went back to skateboarding, oddly enough. And then the bass player for my band called one of the venues that we played at here in Riverside. They were hosting a cancer benefit, and they wanted us to play. And it's like, really, a cancer benefit after I just went through that? And it's like, how could I say yes and how could I say no? So, because I'd quit doing the band. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. And then I ended up meeting Shelley there. And we ended up getting married like a year and a half later. But even then, while we were actually seeing each other, taking our kids to skateboard parks. It wasn't even like dating. But she was over at the house, and she had mentioned that she went to school with Mick Mars' son, Les. And I knew that Les lived in Riverside, but I had never met him. His name is Les Paul Deal, which is, leave it to Mick to name his kid Les Paul, right? Because he's such a guitar fanatic. I think that's the coolest thing. But I'm like, really? Well, what Shelley didn't know is years earlier, a friend of mine who worked at a music store in Riverside said, hey, we got one of Mick Mars's guitars in here. You're the first person I'm calling. And I go, what is it? He goes, it's a Kramer Telecaster. I'm like, well, not really much for, buying signature stuff or whatever, but thanks, but no thanks. And another friend of mine bought it. Well, another year or two later, I build a custom George Lynch replica for him because I can build guitars and paint and do all that stuff. And I built him a replica of the Rose guitar. And he goes, I'll give you the Mick Mars Kramer Telecaster in trade for doing the work because I'm a big Kramer fan. So I had Mick's Telecaster for 5 or 6 years, maybe longer than that. So Shelley's over and I showed her Mick's guitar. And she's like, oh, my God. And she took a picture of it and sent it to Les, Mick's son. He had to sell it. His stepdad made him sell it to the music store to cover a phone bill. And Mick gave it to him as one of the guitars that Kramer made him for the Moscow Music Festival. Because Kramer didn't make Telecaster bodies, but they made 4 of them for Mick. And this was the Tobacco Sunburst one that he gave to his son. Then his son had to sell it. And then it found its way to me, and I ended up marrying the girl that used to be his platonic best friend in high school. That's weird. So she sends him a picture, and he's like, oh, my God, I've been looking for that for like 10 years, trying to figure out it would show up on eBay or something. And he goes, how much you want for it? And I heard the story of how he had to get rid of it, and I'm like, no, I can't sell it. because in my head, I'm like, I can't sell him back his own guitar. So it took a few years when Motley did their farewell tour in 2015. Keep in mind, Les lives in Kentucky at this point. Motley was playing in Lexington, and Les has a band called, what is it? Why am I drawing a blank? It's like a Van Halen takeoff, but they kind of country rock everything. It'll come to me. But anyway, we would get to see his band play and then go see Motley the next night. So my plan was to bring the guitar out, but he didn't know that. And his bandmates had called me prior, hey, we'd like to buy that guitar for him. And I'm like, no. Because I knew I was going to give it to him, whether he came out to our side or we went out. So we end up going out there, and we get off of the airport and go meet him for lunch. He has no idea that guitar's in the trunk, which the airline actually lost, and we got lucky enough to find it with the case broken, but luckily the guitar was fine. And then at his show, I brought the guitar up. It was interesting because they play all sorts of different tunings, and I had to talk to their other guitar player, and let the cat out of the bag. Hey, I have the guitar here. What song can I bring it up on? Because it has what's called a floating Floyd Rose. Has to be tune specific. I know this is long, but anyway, I tuned it, and the singer calls an audible, and they skip the song. So the guy's like waving me off. No. And I had it like behind my back, but the strap was on. So then they're going to play that song, and the guy waves me, come on. And Les is going to pick the guitar that's in the right tuning, and his guitar player is like, no, dude, you want that one. And he points at me down below the stage, and you could only see the strap on me, so he couldn't see the guitar. He looks at me, and he's like, what are you talking about? I need this guitar. And he grabs me by the shirt. He goes, no, you need that one. And I whipped the guitar from behind me, and there's his dad's Telecaster. And he just like looked at the ground and started tearing up, and I went up and gave him his guitar back. And he goes, well, how much you want? And I'm like, dude, it's yours. It's always been yours. So he goes, but this is a brand new strap on here. I'm like, dude, you can keep the strap. I go, you have something of mine and something of your dad's. So he was very grateful. And before we left, he gave me a Gibson Firebird, because we had talked about Firebirds prior, with his dad's guitar strap, with Mick's guitar strap that he used on the Girls tour. And he goes, well, cool. This is even, because now you have my guitar and my dad's strap. So I keep that strap on my black Les Paul that I use when I do Motley stuff. So that's another cool fan story.
How appropriate. Yeah. Man. And the fact that it's like, this isn't about money. This isn't about credit. This just is about doing the right thing. You know?
Right. And he took us backstage at Lexington to meet his dad. And this was when things were rough. All the guys at Motley had their own dressing rooms. And even Mick had a calendar Xing off like, man, only 12 more shows and I'm out of here, because they were really getting on each other's nerves. And that show was good. That's when they had Alice Cooper opening for him. And Mick played his butt off. And I'm not pandering again. He's gone through a lot of medical things that he's had to overcome. And he still gives it 110. And even back then, Vince was kind of doing his thing where he'd sing a few words and put the mic out to the audience, sing a few words, mumble something. And it's like, damn, dude, the guy to your left is giving 110%, and you're not even trying anymore, and it was a little disappointing. But went back there, and Mick is on the couch with his wife, and he's tired after that. And he sees me, and he's like, Les brings me back, goes, Dad, this is Eddie. And he gets up off the couch, and he comes up, and he shakes my hand. He goes, hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much for what you've done for my boy. I thought that was very cool. That guy didn't have to get up off the couch, But you think about a few acts of kindness, and how far it can go, It really made a difference for Les. It made a difference for Mick, and it made me feel good, And I'm sitting here with a ton of guitars. It's like, if somebody needs something, or if something's destined to be somewhere else, make it happen, Where I've had people say, God, you probably could have sold that guitar, And it's like, why? It had needed to go back to the rightful owner. So
how appropriate. I could feel the goosebumps, man, as you're telling this story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I still have one Star guitar left. I have one of Lita Ford's double neck BC Rich 12 string over 6 strings. And I bought it without even knowing it was hers. And then through the NAMM show, I had a buddy that was doing a meet and greet with her and gave her a picture and did kind of a boudoir picture of my wife with the guitar. And he's like showing Lita, was this your guitar? And she goes, yeah. And she's like, who's the girl? She's kind of hot. So it's like kind of cool knowing that Lita Ford thinks my wife is hot.
Right on.
But it's a beautiful guitar. It's like a purple snakeskin print over white pearl with gold hardware. I can't believe she sold it back to BC Rich. One of their employees bought it, got estranged from the company. BC Rich wanted to buy it back. He wouldn't do it. He sold it to Guitar Center in Hollywood. They couldn't move it. It went to Guitar Center in San Bernardino. I was in the market for a double neck. I was going to buy the Jimmy Page, double SG one, but they wanted like $2,200 for that. And no, they wanted $2,800 for that. And it had ripples in it. I just wasn't impressed. And I'd seen that purple snakeskin double neck, which was Lita's. I didn't know it was Lita's. Up above their cashier, like in the no touch zone, And the guy's really trying to sell me. I'm talking with the manager now, because that's a high dollar guitar, $2,800. And I'm like, no, I'm not feeling it. And I point at Lita's guitar. I'm like, now if it was something like that, I'd be interested. And he goes, oh, you interested in that? Because this was 2000, no, probably 99 or 98. Pointy guitars were out of style. You couldn't sell them if you tried. And he goes, dude, I'll make you a deal on that. And he brought it out, and it had her flight case even. And he told me whose it was, but her name wasn't on it, but I still wasn't quite buying it. I'm one of those guys that I don't really trust it until I can verify it. Words are cheap. And it ended up getting verified later, but I ended up buying it, and I still have it. So I think that rounds out my fan stories for you.
I love it. And the stories will continue as your rock and roll adventures continue, right, Eddie?
Exactly. Being able to play with the guys in Sweet Emotions, it's such a fun Aerosmith band. And it's got Troy and Joe from my Poison band that I play in. It's actually Troy's Poison band at this point. And for my birthday party, I wanted to have Poison play since we don't book it anymore. This was last October. And then since they had the Aerosmith one, I'm like, you want to check, see if Sweet Emotions wants to play? And they all agreed, but their guitar player, their Joe Perry, couldn't make it. And my favorite band of all time is Aerosmith. Second is Rat, who I thought was like the second coming of Aerosmith back in the day. So now at my birthday party, I got to put together a Joe Perry persona, brought out my Black Les Paul, and got to play a full set of Aerosmith with Sweet Emotions. What a birthday present. That was an amazing gift that they gave me. I got to be Joe Perry for a night. That was so cool. So being able to play with these guys this weekend is just more of the same. It's magic.
You can expect magic, folks. Fast Times, yes. The 80s concert experience, May 2nd. Doors open at 6:30. Get your tickets now. FoxVisalia.org at the Visalia Fox Theater. Eddie, Ayala. As we wrap things up. Hey, get there early, yeah. You got to get your seats. Get a couple drinks. The band.
Yeah, actually, I'll be out there. I'll make sure I get Joey Alessi out there, the drummer for Sweet Emotions. And I'm sure we will be out in the foyer hoping to take pictures with some of you guys and chat. And we're very accessible. Remember, we're coming to see Visalia.
Yes.
We're not a fish tank for you guys to watch. We are coming to see you and hang out and have some fun.
Well, folks, quick introduction. If you wouldn't mind, Eddie, giving a quick intro to our listeners of who's in the band, your co-stars, and what they can expect as far as just the lineup of tunes. I know we said 80s concert experience, and we say it's all in one, but what does that really look like for them as they're thinking about buying a ticket?
Well, we have Johnny Ventura, and he does the persona of Jeff Spicoli from the movie Fast Times. So if you haven't seen Fast Times, maybe check it out real quick. Go on YouTube, catch some clips, and you'll understand, hey, that guy with the Hawaiian shirt and the zinc oxide on his nose, okay, I get it. He plays that part, and he plays it well. And that's the premise for the name of the band. And then we have Lance on guitar, and David Eba on drums. David's the newest member of the band. He's subbed with us over the last couple of years, but he's been in the band for maybe 6 months. And then myself on bass, and we have alter egos. Lance's name being the guitar player is Riff, and David, we've given him the name of Double D, and we're going to leave it to the audience over the next, couple years to discern what Double D stands for. And we have a few funny ideas of what they might be, but we're not gonna nail it down. The girls that we had doing social media at the Whiskey decided to name me Casanova, because they said got that vibe, and so that's my stage name. So we've got Double D, Spicoli, Casanova, and Riff. And then we also have Squid, our keyboard player, and he's a classically trained keyboard player. He's also the one that engineered the Christmas songs for Patrick and I at his studio in North Hollywood. And he's a very talented singer. He's got his original band called Shadow Structure. You can find some of their older stuff, which unfortunately, let's see, I'm trying to remember the name. It's that kind of horror show that was big for a while. Now I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, they changed their name not to be confused with that. What's that Netflix show that has the kids and the interdimensional monsters that are coming to get them? And
like Stranger Things.
That's it, Stranger Things. See, we draw blanks at some point. Squid's band was called Stranger Things. I'm sure you could find some of his music on YouTube somewhere. But he'll usually sing a few songs in the set. He's infamous for doing the Guns N' Roses stuff. And so that's a little tip-off. You might hear some Guns N' Roses this weekend. You can hear some Depeche Mode, some Van Halen, probably the most amazing take on Eruption that you'll ever see. But a lot of 80s danceable things with a few hard rock surprises and even some heavy surprises. We like to keep it a mixed bag, but predominantly and we don't want to tip our hand too much, but if you play mostly danceable stuff, the ladies like to dance. And this goes all the way back to the 80s. If you can get the women to your shows, the men will follow. Little tip for everybody else out there that's got bands going. Cater to the women, the men will follow, and you have a big crowd.
That's so what my wife said. She does social media marketing on the side, and she had a client, and she goes, it says brewery, and she goes, I am doing my best to try to reach the women, and I'm noticing that the demographic that's increasing is there's more women, meaning there's more women going and whatnot. And she goes, what people don't realize, your point exactly. She goes, what people don't realize is you need to get to the woman because the woman's the one deciding where they're going to go that night. And I'm like, how smart. Hello. It's, you want something everyone's going to love, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate the decision maker in the process either, right?
There you go. So I guess in closing, make sure you guys take a look at social media for Sweet Emotions. My social media on YouTube, my YouTube channel is called What Eddie Does. You can find that. If you search for The Grinch and Patrick Warburton, invariably it'll end up at my YouTube channel. But it's What Eddie Does. And then, of course, the one you want to remember, fasttimesband.com. And you can keep track of us, and we're coming your way. And for those of you that are in Visalia that can travel a bit, I know we used to do some shows in Fresno, and we'd get people from Visalia up there. We are doing a show in Feather Falls Casino, which is up just above Sacramento. I know it's still a trek, but kind of in the neighborhood. So be on the lookout for that. And that's all I got for you, Josh. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Eddie Ayala, thank you, brother. And I'm excited to see you at the show on Saturday. And what Eddie does, it's more than a YouTube channel. It's a way of life. He rocks, man.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. It's got everything from skateboarding to prop building. I used to build the Halloween props for Not Scary Farm, the animatronics and such. So things that I still do. It's what Eddie does, right?
Well, and I'm going to throw this in before we close out. You also like to fly remote control planes and have a really cool hobby in that world too, huh?
Yes, yeah. I'm looking at them hanging in my studio right now. And, being creative in that realm, that's what taught me how to do animatronics, because I do the very large ones that are up to 100-inch wingspan replicas of real airplanes. And to show you how it can pay off, and from working at Knott's, last October, this will be my last story, we did our Halloween show, Fast Times Halloween show at the Whiskey, and we went out dressed as Spinal Tap. And we did a montage, a medley of like 4 Spinal Tap songs, and one was Stonehenge. So I built the scale model of the small Stonehenge that you see in the movie, and we had it lowered from the ceiling as we were playing Stonehenge. It was freaking awesome.
Turn it up to 11, man.
Exactly. I mean, like I said about being in a tribute band, you got to be lucky. Harry Shearer, the bass player, Derek Smalls, is about 5'6", and I'm 6'1". So the joke was that I was Derek Talls, not Derek Smalls.
That's funny. That's awesome.
When I had his Fu Manchu mustache on and the long black hair with the page boy bangs, people didn't even recognize me as Eddie from Fast Times at all. It was cool. That's what Halloween's about, right?
Totally, man. Totally. I love it. You're such a awesome friend of the Brumster, and of course, an amazing entertainer, but more importantly, an amazing man. I love getting to know you further and sharing with our audience, bro. Thank you, Eddie.
Well, thank you for keeping rock music alive. Without people like yourself, people don't hear it. They don't get to know about it. So thank you for what you do.
Hey, I love it. I love it, man. It's a unifier too. No matter what side of the equation you're on in this world, if you love rock and roll, you can unify with other rock and rollers, no matter what side of the world they're on. So, Eddie Ayala,
I'll see you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. I'll see you on Saturday, man. Thanks, bro. I appreciate you.
Okay, I will see you soon.
All right, you too. Fast Times, the 80s concert experience, coming May 2nd, Visalia Fox Theater. Doors open about 6:30. Get your tickets now at foxvisalia.org. I will see you there. Eddie Ayala is rocking it on the stage. Like he said, he'll be out in the foyer, introducing himself, taking pictures with folks, and it is a lot of fun. The whole experience is going to be just insane. It's so much fun. We'll see you there Saturday, May 2nd, Visalia Fox Theater, Fast Times, the 80s concert experience. And again, my friend Eddie Ayala, thank you so much for being on our podcast today, sharing your favorite rock memories and just context about, rock history, the music business. We went into so much cool stuff today, the artistry of it all. Some of his cool experiences, meeting all of the cool stars, David Lee Roth, got to play with the drummer from Rat. I mean, my God, how awesome is that? Dawkins, getting to play there, having Lita Ford and Nikki Sixx and just everyone in between playing a part in the artistry of what he brings and his band brings at Fast Times to the whole 80s rock experience, allowing you to hop into a time machine and have fun. And I hope to see you there this Saturday, May 2nd at the Visalia Fox Theater. Thanks again, Eddie, for being on the show. I'm Josh Brum, a.k.a. The Brumster. Thanks for listening to the podcast, Rock Stories with the Brumster, real rock stories from the fans' perspective. Peace out.